Hello, my name is Genevieve Faherty. Today I will be presenting for my math PoL and my chemistry PoL. For my math PoL, I am presenting on integrated math 2, and I am in period 11-12. For my homework completion chart, I didn't complete all my homework, but I do understand it, most of it. With some of the homework I did complete it, but I lost it because I'm incredibly disorganized and I procrastinate, and that's something that I've been trying to do to work on for this semester. When I did check my homework, when I did do my homework, I did check over it by redoing the problem in reverse. And when I asked for help, I only sometimes ask for help because when I'm asking for help, I feel like I'm dumb if I don't get it the first time. So I don't really like to ask for help. I try to figure it out on my own, and that frustrates me. For my assessment score chart, I did not complete all my corrections, but the corrections I did complete, I completed with my father, and he helped me assist me with problems I got wrong, and I figured out my mistakes by retracing my steps. This semester, to improve my grade, I tried really hard to improve my organization. And I did for the first semester, which is where I got all A's and then 1 B+. But then about halfway through, I got confused with the notes, and I didn't want to ask for help because that makes me nervous, and it takes me out of my comfort zone. So I got to a point where my anxiety was so high that I just didn't want to ask for help, which is why my grade went down from then. Essential skill number 2 was my lowest grade. For the section 2.1, you're supposed to classify triangles. For 2.2, you're supposed to be able to apply the triangle angle sum theorem as well as the exterior angle theorem to what I have learned. And finally, in the learning target 2.3, I should be able to use and identify the properties of isosceles triangles as well as equilateral triangles. This is an example from my quiz that I got wrong, and this is an example from my test I got right. On my quiz, what I got wrong was it was supposed to be an isosceles triangle, but I had thought since it didn't have any measurements, it was supposed to be scalene, and I didn't know that you could measure the triangle with something like relative to your thumb or to a corner of the paper. And for the question that I got right on the test, that this quiz 2 really helped me with, was I went back and I made sure to define what the isosceles triangle meant, and that helped me a lot with my math. So I was able to do this problem and compare the two sides by just making an equal sign and solve for x to find my answer. For my quiz, the question I got wrong on my quiz, what mostly I messed up was my math, because I was disorganized through here, and when my math goes all over the place, I get confused with the numbers, so I wrote down the wrong numbers, and that's what really messes me up, is my organization when I'm writing. Normally I tend to be very good about it, but when I get about halfway through a test, I get a lot of anxiety, and I feel like I'm not going to finish fast enough, so I just keep writing it down everywhere that I can, just because I feel like I have to get it done faster. For the test part 1, the thing that I got wrong was actually a very simple question. It was a triangle angle sum theorem, and I found the angle that was inside of it, but I forgot to subtract it from 180, and instead I made it kind of like a complementary angle as opposed to a supplementary angle, and I just rewrote the number that I wrote in the center on the side when I meant to subtract it from 180, which is where my fault was. For this semester analysis, I feel like I should get an A in this class because I actually do know the material, but it was my fault because I became disorganized and I didn't ask for help, and that was fault in me. But I feel like I do know all the work, and I demonstrated these essential skills, and I can demonstrate them. my chemistry PoL, for Unit 3, I did it on Unit 3, chemical bonding as my lowest one, and I'm in period 2-4. For Unit 3, there are 3 types of bonds that help form molecules, and those are the metallic, ionic, and covalent. With the metallic bonds, there's their valence electrons are easily lost due to a low electronegativity, and those form cations that when the electrons are going around and bouncing around, they go and form onto the cations that lost the electron, which is what actually forms the bond. And it is a very strong bond, as well as very malleable, because since the electrons are all floating around loosely, they're able to adapt easier to when you're like bending metals, and that's why we can forge metals and things like that. For the ionic bond, as opposed to sharing electrons or having electrons just bounce around, the electrons are in a very solid structure and cannot move at all. An ionic bond is between a metal and a non-metal combination of atoms, and what happens is that an atom gives up one of its electrons to another atom, and that atom in turn becomes an anion, and that anion gets attracted to the other atom because it's a positive, as opposed to the other atom who had just gained an electron and became a negative. So it's an anion and a cation forming the bond, and the bond is very brittle and easy to break because these electrons are locked in space and can't move around. The last bond is a covalent bond, and it doesn't lose electrons because the electron, it has a high electronegativity, and when it has a high electronegativity, it doesn't lose electrons because the electrons all are attracted to each other, so they end up just sharing the electrons as opposed to only one getting the electron and the other just attaching to itself like an ionic bond. For my example for this, the compound that conducts electricity well is the metallic compound, because electricity can go through it without disrupting its structure. So that would be a metallic bond. An example of that would be gold or iron. A compound that consists of only known metals will of course be a covalent atom, and that can be shown in the water molecules. A compound that conducts electricity when it's dissolved in water is the ionic, because when it is dissolved in water, the electrons are able to move around more freely, so that electricity can pass through the structure easier. And the compound that exists in highly ordered crystals is again the ionic compound. That's awesome. And an example of that would be NaCl, which is salt. For the B part of Unit 3 was covalent bonds in large molecules. So with covalent bonds, first of all, we have to take away everything besides the light green and the blue and this green right here. All of the nonmetals are the only thing that can combine with the covalent bonds. So for my example for this, I did a carbon atom, which is interesting because it has 4 electrons, so it can make up to 4 bonds, unlike most other elements. And I combined it with chlorine atoms. And if you notice, when you combine it, you give the carbon to balance it out, to make it have 8 in the valence shell, so that fills it. And then also you should notice that it has electron bond, so it shares its electrons as opposed to splitting up the electrons. For Unit 3C, repeating patterns in salt crystals, what happens with the salt crystals is that when the sodium gives the when the sodium gives the chlorine its electron, it becomes an anion, and the chlorine has a balanced valence electron, but it's negative, so the anion stays attached to the chlorine. And when it does that, it keeps wanting to build off of itself because it keeps attracting more cations and anions. So it ends up forming a crystalline structure like this. For the Unit 3 loose dot structures, it represents elements and elemental bonding. For my example, what I did was I took two potassiums to an oxygen, and I took each potassium and I put one into an oxygen, and then I put the other one into the oxygen so that the oxygen would have a full valence electron shell of 8. And then afterwards, I took the potassium, like the previously stated, like the salt crystals, where it's a anion and it's attracted to the cation because it gave up its 1 and the cation is now a negative particle. The K stays with the O, so it forms KO2. And with these are the different bondings. So you can bond up to 3 electrons in order to create a bond. 3 pairs of electrons. And finally, for Unit 3E, with electronegativity and ionized energy, as you go down the periodic table, the numbers of shells increases while the electronegativity decreases, because the electrons are getting further and further away from their proton center, which makes them looser from it because the other electrons on the inside are repelling the outside. For element number 1, with a 0.9 electronegativity, it would be a metallic bond because metallic bonds have a very low electronegativity, as previously stated. For the 0.9 and the 3.5, it would be a metallic bond, and then the 3.5 would be like a covalent thing, what would normally be in a covalent thing. So it would be like a gas and a metal together, and that forms a covalent bond, an ionic bond. And then for the 3.5s, those are both high electronegativity, and that means that those are both gas.
Let's go ahead and start off with a goal for next semester. What's one thing you can do that you think will make a huge difference versus this semester?
Well, I think I'm going to be more on top of having all my work done, where it's like the organizational goals. I'm going to have people help me with it rather than trying to just do it all by myself and try to get rid of that anxiety that makes me kind of procrastinate and just dread my work. I'm going to try and enjoy it more.
Okay. What's one way we can do that? Make sure that you stay organized and complete your assignments and actually turn them in.
I think I'm going to have check-ins with my dad at least once a week, every week, so that he can make sure that I'm on top of it and I can make sure I'm on top of it.
Okay. Another thing that I just suggest is make sure you do things as soon as you remember.
Okay.
Don't procrastinate. I'll do it later. I'll do it later because it never happens, right?
Yeah.
Do it on the spot. As soon as you remember, do it on the spot. It'll take you a few seconds. Okay?
you a little nervous?
Yeah.
I don't think they're gonna be the only thing I was, small thing though, this example here, you're talking about like as you go up and down a group, right?
Yeah.
So when we're talking about electronegativity and ionization energy for bonding, we're talking about mainly the difference between metals and non-metals.
Yeah.
So you probably wouldn't want to focus on the vertical one as much as the horizontal, right? Because what we're trying to say is that which one wants electrons more, a non-metal or a metal?
The non-metal.
Right. Okay, so that we want to talk about how that has a higher electronegativity and then a lower electronegativity.
Yeah, I was just thinking of the electronegativity because the electrons are further away from the center.
Right.
So that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. But no, you do fine. I can tell. It was not entertaining doing that.
Oh, thanks.
I'm just kidding. But no, good. Good. All right. Next victim. Did I say that out loud? Oh, did you finish? Did you turn off the recording?
No.
Great. Now you guys are gonna watch.
I can't turn it off. I can't.
Okay, my dear. Do you want to explain why if you tap